From the youngest Australians to those studying at TAFE or university, the education system helps to shape the lives of voters and the decisions they make at the ballot box. Education policy can be broken up into three main areas: early childhood, schools and higher and vocational education. Let's start with early childhood.
You know you can make your own didgeridoo?
The government introduced major changes to childcare subsidies last year, which it says has left 1 million families better off. Labor says it would go further, spending $4 billion over 4 years to make childcare cheaper or even free for low and middle income households. And it's promising a pay rise for some childcare workers.
Early childhood educators are the first adults to which we trust our kids, and yet they are underpaid. The parents know it, the community knows it, everybody knows it.
Why would somebody in the private sector ever give someone a wage rise if they knew that the Labor Party were going to use taxpayer funds to do it instead?
The major parties also differ when it comes to preschool. The Coalition has allocated $450 million until the end of next year to give children access to 15 hours of preschool a week, while Labor has pledged longer-term funding guarantees and to extend preschool subsidies to 3-year-olds from 2021 at a cost of almost $10 billion over a decade. For years, schools funding has been the subject of fierce debate, which former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull tried to settle with the so-called Gonski 2.0 plan. It replaced multiple school funding deals with a needs-based system worth an extra $23 billion over a decade.
We will get Australian students back to the top of the class.
Labor is promising an extra $14 billion for public schools over 10 years, $3.3 billion of which would flow in the first few years.
The difference we are talking about when we talk about fair funding for schools is hundreds of thousands of dollars in your schools over the next 3 years alone.
It's also committed to honouring a $4.5 billion funding boost struck by the Coalition for Catholic and independent schools. Vocational education and training has been a focus for both major parties at this election, with each side promising to boost the number of apprentices.
Whoa, it's like a big pizza oven.
The Coalition has allocated more than $500 million to improve the sector and encourage 80,000 new apprenticeships, while Labor is promising a $1 billion package for 150,000 apprenticeships and 100,000 free TAFE places.
G'day!
There are also significant differences between the parties on higher education. The Coalition argues it's delivering record funding for universities, but Labor has promised to return to a demand-driven system, which it says would add 200,000 university places at a cost of $10 billion over a decade. Plenty of policy differences for voters to study.